welcome back to the show. If you've been following the news lately, you've probably noticed a growing concern about the rising number of youth dealing with addiction in Canada. In fact, research shows that opioid death rates have tripled for Ontario teens and young adults since 2014.
Unbelievable. Well, our next guests are here to shed some light on this troubling situation and share some important information on how we can all help any young people in our lives who are struggling. Dr. Amy Gajaria is a child and adolescent psychiatrist at CAMH, which is the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and Chantal Vallerand is executive director of Drug Free Kids Canada. And I'd like to welcome both of you to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's such an important conversation to have. So, Chantal, the headlines regarding teens and young people with substance abuse have been quite shocking. And I'm curious, does this align with the statistics that you are seeing?
Indeed, yes. Although youth addiction is an ongoing issue, but the hospitalization rate is increasing with youth with substance use. As well, the Canadian Association of Pediatricians came out with a report that says that the leading cause of death in Western Canada right now, for the kids that are aged 10 to 18, is accidental overdose.
Wow.
So it is actually, it is concerning. The average age of experimentation with alcohol in Canada is 13, and the average age of experimentation with cannabis is 14. So, and we know that the best way to do prevention is to really initiate dialogue with our kids before they start experimenting. It's never too late, but I would strongly encourage parents to engage in an informed dialogue with their kids as soon as they can.
Dr. Amy, give us an insight. What is going on with young people that it seems like they're turning to drugs and alcohol more than ever?
You know, we're in the pandemic, we just came through the pandemic, and we know that that was really tough on young people. It really affected their mental health. It was such a hard time for them. And in my practice, I see a lot of young people who use substances to deal with their feelings, their emotions, what's going on. And when things are really difficult, sometimes if they don't have other coping strategies, they might go to drugs or alcohol. I also happen to work with a lot of young people who think a lot about the world. And I think we sometimes underestimate kids and how much they think and pay attention to what's going on. But they come in and they talk about the price of food, the price of housing, what their life is going to look like, the climate, and sometimes they just don't know how to cope with the heaviness of that, and that sometimes can contribute as well.
All right, so Chantal, what substance seems to be the most problematic for young people?
So as I mentioned, usually initiation is done with alcohol and cannabis at an early age. But as we're mentioning as well, is there's a rise in the use of opioids, and there's no margin of error with that, right? There's a very sad story that happened in Montreal over the Christmas break. There was a young boy, Mathis, with his family having pizza, looking forward to the Christmas break, said he was going to go to his room for gaming with his friends online. Parents said yes. He went to his room and proceeded to take a pill that he thought was Oxycontin to experiment. And then started feeling funny feelings in his arms, told the people online, I'm just going to take a break. I'm going to go to sleep. Brushed his teeth, put on his PJ, went to bed, and unfortunately the next day when his parents came to wake him up, he had passed away. So the reason why I'm sharing this is the dad was very vocal about it and came out and said, you know, I was hoping that he would have come to me and tell me that he wasn't feeling okay. So it's about normalizing the conversation, about telling your kids that no matter what, they can come to you. You're going to be there to support them. So using prescription drug to get high is one of the conversations we should have, because the margin of error is almost non-existent. It can be fatal.
Wow. Listen, we know that exposure to drugs and alcohol when you're an adult is going to have an impact on your body. But Amy, what does early exposure or early use of drugs and alcohol do to young people?
So unfortunately, the earlier you start using, the higher risk you have of having problematic use. So that might mean you have a dependence or you use more significant substances. And so that's one major thing. The other thing is, once you're using really heavily, you're getting into a lot of difficult territory. So kids that are using heavily have more relationship of being in conflict with the law. They might end up, you know, seeing people overdose. They might experience their own trauma. And that just keeps adding and adding and adding, and then it makes it more and more difficult to get out of that system, get out of that life because of all of what you've seen. We also know there's an association between early cannabis use, heavy cannabis use, and the emergence of psychosis if you're using really heavily in your adolescence. And then just, as Chantal said, the risk of overdose. You know, we might have experimented with drugs, or people we know might have experimented with drugs when they were younger, but the toxic drug supply, it just means that even if a kid is experimenting or doing things recreationally and not intending to, there can be these devastating consequences like Chantal spoke, because we don't know what's in our drug supply anymore.
All right, so if you're a parent or a caregiver and there's a young person in your life and you're concerned about them, what signs should you look out for if they're perhaps struggling with drug use?
Well, if all of a sudden they're losing interest in the things that made them happy before, you know, those sources of joy are not as present anymore, they're losing interest, they're isolating themselves, they're more to themselves in their room. All of a sudden they have new friends that you don't know much about, and you're asking questions and they're more secretive. They're asking you for pocket money, and when you ask for the change, you're not seeing the change. They're being secrets about why they need that money. Grades all of a sudden are declining. These are all signs, but at the end of the day, they're teenagers, right? So they will be more to themselves. They will have a tendency to separate and go to their room and have new friends, but we tell parents, keep at it, keep asking questions, share your concerns with them. These are some signs. That doesn't mean I don't want to alarm parents. I just want them to be in tune with what's going on with their kids' lives.
Okay, so Amy, if a parent is watching and they think my child might be going down this path, what do? How can they support their child?
It is so important to have an open conversation with kids and to know that they can come talk to you no matter what. The connection is so important. It sounds so simple, but when kids know they're loved and that you care about them no matter what, it goes so far. So even if there is a mistake, even if there's an error, even if they do, get drunk and call you, the idea that they can come back to you and that you're there for them is huge, because then they will tell you what's going on. And the other thing I'll say is, if you know anyone in your life who is a young person who uses pills, you need to have an naloxone kit in your house. You just never know when there'll be an overdose.
Chantal and Amy, invaluable information. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Thank you. If you are looking for more support, both CAMH and Drug Free Kids Canada have tons of amazing resources on their website, so please go there and check it out.
Hey there, what did you think? Drop your comments below and join the conversation. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can find more on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. See you soon.